Yeah, sure.
All right. Okay. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Samir Raje. You head Zoom's operations in India, and as you know, you've seen real growth of your service all across the world, and that includes India. And so we just wanted to ask you a few questions about the privacy aspects that have been coming up in the news lately, including end-to-end encryption, Zoom bombing, and all that, and a couple more policy-related questions about, the reaction to Zoom that has been seen in India, and also some networking challenges. So we will start with the privacy and the end-to-end encryption aspect. Zoom recently acquired Keybase to implement end-to-end encryption for some customers. So why is end-to-end encryption right now only being offered to enterprise customers and schools? What challenges are you facing in rolling it out to everyone? And also, will it, eventually be made available to pro users who are not on the business or enterprise tiers but are still, paying?
Okay. So, Harun and Nikhil, thank you very much for having me here. I really appreciate this, and this gives me a platform to really clarify a lot of things and put out facts in the open. So, your question is really spot on. It's talking about the encryption and what are we doing about it. Yes, we did acquire a company called Keybase to offer end-to-end encryption, but we need to understand what do we mean by end-to-end encryption, right? So that's the basic question. That's where everything hinges. So to answer your question, when or initially when we spoke about Zoom, did it mean that Zoom meetings were not encrypted? Well, very well, they were encrypted, and they were encrypted in one of the best possible formats in the world at that moment of time, and probably it was best industry best even at that moment of time. But what we need to understand is Zoom is not a one-to-one calling, application. It's not a video calling application. It's a unified communication and collaboration platform. And what it means is that in a communication platform, you need to have various formats of communication or collaboration coming in. You need to have users from different formats, different devices, different applications to be permitted to come in. So the moment initially when even before we acquired Keybase or we even announced going heavier with the 256-bit GCM encryption, till the time you were using a Zoom application on your laptop or on your mobile phone, your meetings were encrypted. Period. They were encrypted with 256-bit encryption, right? You need to understand that when you are using a mobile phone or when you're using a PSTN phone or a landline phone to join into the Zoom meeting and being a unified collaboration platform, we have to allow that. Then from the Zoom cloud to the end device, that's where there is no encryption. You will agree that voice or the normal PSTN line cannot be encrypted. That's what we are saying is not end-to-end encrypted, right? Similarly, when you are joining Zoom via some different devices, video conferencing devices, or different applications, that is where the encryption format may change to meet the encryption format of the end device or the application. So till the time you're using Zoom application on your laptop or your phone or Zoom Room, you're absolutely encrypted. Now, what we are doing is we are going one step ahead and offering end-to-end encryption for all those users who are using or probably need it for highly confidential or level 4 top secret discussions where they don't want any other device or any other format of communication to log into this. That's where end-to-end encryption will be available. And mind you, when end-to-end customers using end-to-end encryption, they will have a lot of restriction in terms of the kind of device or the application that can connect into the platform. So that's a basic difference. The Zoom meetings were already encrypted. They have gone beyond now with Zoom 5.0. We are offering 256-bit GCM encryption, which is not available in the market with most of the players, similar players, but we are offering it. So it's state of the art encryption, top security, already at your fingertips.
Right, but
Okay.
Samir, if you look at the situation with Zoom, it was claiming that the communications is end-to-end encrypted when it was not entirely end-to-end encrypted. So it's hardly, I mean, you can hardly say that that was the best encryption in place, and it has been widely acknowledged that that was a false claim by Zoom at that point in time.
Well, to be honest with you, Nikhil, yes, and we went on the record and did publicly mention the fact that yes, that was a miscommunication from our side. If you go through our blogs, it is very clearly articulated over there. So it's again not the question of not being the best encryption format available. It was the best encryption format available even then. It is the best encryption format available even now. What is mistake or what was the miscommunication was our communication that it was end-to-end encrypted, right? That was the difference. If you look at a Zoom meeting, and as I mentioned before, if you are using a Zoom application to log in from your desktop or for laptop or your mobile phone, your meetings were always encrypted in the best possible format. There would be hardly any most of the players today would not even be at 256. We are gone to 256-bit GCM now, which is even higher and even much better than what it was. So yes, there was a miscommunication probably from our side where we claimed that it was end-to-end encrypted, which shouldn't have been done, and which has been very honestly put forward on our blog. We don't try to hide anything on that front.
Okay. Uh, just one more question about that. End-to-end encryption, necessarily means that Zoom as a platform will have less visibility into calls that are going on. And how will you balance that problem with content moderation, especially for schools and educational institutions?
So we don't moderate the content, anyways. Arun, you need to understand that we don't have any access to the information that is being shared on our platform. It is all end-to-end encrypted. Even if we wanted, we cannot check on what is going on or what is being shared on the platform. That's all encrypted. Now, when it comes to the security of the children or the schools, what happens is, let's say, for example, if somebody has shared some, inappropriate content on the platform, then any law enforcement agency in India can send us a request, okay? And what can be done is we have a process where our security and privacy team and the legal team put the information together in terms of the login details or the requisite details of the person, highlighted person, that including the IP address and so on and so forth, and we share that with the law enforcement agencies, and that is in line with the requirements of our government and of our uh, you know uh, uh, the guidelines of the constitution, and we comply with that. So that can be shared, and the person can be the offender can be brought to books.
Have you been
That's the
seeing these
process.
requests coming in more often from India?
So again, it's a catch-22 situation, Arun. To be honest with you, if you look at what has been happening, there is, needless to say, there is in fact that the cybercrime has gone up by 600%. Right. So whatever we are doing in the cyber world today is not secure. Uh, so yes, there is a threat. Now, if you look at the particular instances where I would say bombing or intrusions have happened, in more than 99% of the cases, these have been pranks by the known people. And in majority of the schools cases, it has been kids and themselves who have shared the meeting IDs and passwords with their fellow or students or friends from other schools, telling them to come and join the meeting. So, well, we always tell the schools and teachers to be cautious, because it's very easy to go to the cybercrime police or cybercrime division and report the offense, uh, and we would be happy to respond back or comply with all the necessary information. But the issue is, when it comes to the child who has played this prank, I mean, I'm sure Arun and Nikhil, both of you would have been little bit pranksters and jumped classes and gone to other classes when you were in schools and colleges, right? I used to do that. So it's the same scenario. We just need to educate our children better, tell them about the security aspects, and tell them caution them as to why they should not be sharing the user IDs and passwords. And of course, if it is a real offense, then we need to follow the law. But in case of teachers are also a little bit wary, because especially when there are intrusions, they realize that this is done by as a prank by some other child or something, and going to cybercrime police may result into a lot of problems. But at Zoom, we are there. We have given controls to both the levels. First is the teacher itself, who can expel the offender from the class, as it happens in the physical class. And we also comply with the local rules and regulations by giving or sharing the requisite details as the need maybe. We in fact have brought in one more feature on our platform, which is report a user feature. The teacher or the host of the classroom can hit that button and report the user straight away to Zoom, and we can block that ID on our Zoom, or prevent that email ID to re-log in again if it is really found to be inappropriate.
Okay. So we've had, the Home Ministry advisory from the SciCord, and we've had that says that Zoom is not safe for professional or government use, and there is a Supreme Court case as well going on to ban Zoom in India. How are you working to on a policy front to assure the government and users that to kind of work yourself out of this problem?
All right. So again, Arun, in this as well, we need to take one step behind, and if we go into the MHA advisory in totality, uh, MHA had released the first advisory on 12th, which was pretty fair, which talked about Zoom, features and functionalities and how to safeguard. And this was revised on the 16th of April. Now, this advisory, dated same 12th April, is based on two certain advisories, which is CERT is the actual regulatory body, or is the body which looks after the Indian cyberspace and softwares and so on and so forth. And the functionality of CERT across the world is to report on any vulnerabilities of the platform, and how to safeguard the users themselves. Both these advisories, which are highlighted in the MHA advisory, referring to the CERT advisories, do not say that Zoom is safe to use. The CERT advisories in particular say that these are the vulnerabilities, and this is the fix that you need to upgrade to version 4.8 and 4.9 of Zoom, and you're good to go. Now, that is a standard industry practice by CERT for any application. It has not been issued only for Zoom. If you go to CERT website, you'll find thousands of such advisories against all the for all the applications. Similarly, the other advisory by CERT is talking about only about the best practices of Zoom, how to safeguard, use the features, functionalities, etc. So the MHA advisory actually is I would say factually incorrect, and but we are sharing all the requisite details. We are working with the MHA, we are working with the Ministry of Electronic and Information Technology to support them in terms of if there is any misinformation that they may have, to help them reach a right conclusion. We are working with them to share all the requisite details of our organization, not only organization, but even the platform, technology, etc., etc. It has already been shared, in fact, and we are sure that they will take the right decision.
And what would that decision look like? Would it be a withdrawal of that advisory?
Well, yes, of course. I mean, we would expect them to be, yeah, fair, because point number one is we would want them to communicate the facts, which are the CERT facts. Or CERT advisories mentioned that whatever. If you look at the CERT advisory released on the 29th of May, it very clearly talks about Zoom 5.0 and the security and the upgraded features of it. So we just want to communicate, want MHA to communicate and put facts out there in the market. That's all we want to do.
Okay. So I just wanted to roll back on the E2E Pro versus Enterprise thing. Do you plan on making E2E available to Pro users as well, who are obviously paying, but they don't, they don't have enterprise level,
So
plans?
it's I don't know, it's a little bit on the nascent stage right now. As we are still we have put a white paper out there in the public domain, seeking advice and seeking comments on the end-to-end encryption document, which is available publicly right now. So as far as our products are concerned, if you look at the security levels, whether it's a free service, the freemium user, we call it, or pro or business or enterprise, the security offered on all the versions is the same. It's no different. It's the same. The As in case of, if you go and buy a car, if you go the higher the model you pay. Let's say if you're buying a model XYZ, in XYZ, if you go higher and higher, probably you will, instead of getting only driver side airbag, you will get 6 other airbags and anti-roll and so on and so forth. Same thing is what happens. The basic security across all the packages is the same. That is, you get the same amount of encryption. That is, you get the same amount of security features and functions. However, for all the paid users, there is an additional feature or additional features, which are the administration features set by at the admin portal level, which become applicable, which are equivalent to your additional airbags, giving you that additional security. And that will come only with the paid users. Now, what do we do about end-to-end encryption? Well, I'm sure that it would be available for all the paid customers, as far as I remember, or I can think of. But it would be too early for me to get into the details of it, because our product and engineering team is still working out, and based on which we will have the final answer.
Okay. And so, is there a plan to improve mechanisms to invite, or restrict access to Zoom meetings and webinars? So it's not just a meeting ID and a password. There are more steps there. Is that something that you are looking into to improve access security?
So currently as well, if you look at it, there are multiple ways of logging into the meeting ID and password. Now, to answer your question, Arun, it's a fine line between ease of use and making the product more and more complex and heavy. We want our users to have the same simple, easy to use kind of functionality and feature, while making it more robust and security dependent. Uh, so as of now, there are multiple options of having a password sent out separately, or embedding it into the URL, or sending out separate calendar invite. As we continue ahead, there will be more things. We also have for a paid version, what we have is known as a single sign-on, right? Single sign-on is, for example, you don't need to sign in separately for your Zoom meetings. So if you get a Zoom meeting from if I get a Zoom meeting from my internal invite, I am already signed out because of through my single sign-on Windows or any other application that I'm using. And similarly, my fellow colleagues would be signed on, right? So they don't have to plug in their password, etc. So that is an additional security level. Similarly, we also have domain lock features. Now, some of the schools are using it to a very great extent. They have realized that it's one of the best features, which is you can actually restrict the participants with joining the meeting to a certain domain or a certain email address itself. Like, for
Okay.
example, students, right? They don't need to join any other meeting. So if the school name is schoolname.com, then they issue the email IDs to all their students. So only the students from that school can join. And with that we've seen so much reduction, almost zero, or nil, close to nil bombing cases. Even if students want to pass on their user IDs and password to somebody else, they cannot join in. So yes, those features are already available. We will continue to develop on it. That's our goal. Multi-factor or two-factor authentication, single sign-ons, domain locks. So a lot of it is already available. We'll continue to build on it.
Samir, if I may, it almost seems as if there is a differential level of security and privacy as as you go up the tiers. It's almost sounding as if you have to pay more for better privacy. Um, is that the kind of thinking that we should see in an app or a service that has received this kind of scale? Shouldn't privacy and high security be a default option?
So Nikhil, let me
Why should we have to pay? Why should we have to pay more for more security and more more privacy features?
So you will need to elaborate on your question, to be honest with you. First and foremost, privacy is something different and security is something different. If you're talking about privacy aspect, privacy is the same irrespective of whether you are an enterprise grade customer or a free as customer. Our privacy policies are same. They are out there on the domain and very clearly articulated. When you talk about security, yes, security features are additional. As I said, the basic security features like encryption, username, and password, they are the
Hmm.
same across all the user models, whether you are a freemium user or whether you're a paid user. Now, what differs the higher you go, or as per the paid plans, is the additional portal capabilities or additional administration facilities or additional domain capabilities which come along with, which is not possible to be provided on a freemium model anyways. Because on a freemium model, you usually log in, you don't even have your email ID. You have a Gmail or a Yahoo or some public domain ID, and you cannot set your security protocols as per that, right? If you
Hmm.
do that for Gmail, it will be applicable for all Gmail users across the globe. and hence cannot be done. So unless and until you are a domain specific customer, it cannot be done, right? That's a technical thing. And as a result of which, it is definitely applicable for all paid customers, irrespective whether they're pro, business, or enterprise. But the basic security features, like whatever is required in terms of your usernames, passwords, encryption, that is all common across. The privacy features are all common across. In fact, for K to 12 schools, we have privacy rules which are really different. They are again listed on our blog. You can go through it. And again, when a K to 12 school signs or students sign, there is a particular permission that is required for the students to come on board. Other without which we don't allow them.
Well, for example, end-to-end encryption is only being offered to enterprise customers in schools. Why not to everyone? I mean, WhatsApp has end-to-end encryption on all video calls for that matter.
I think we already answered that, Nikhil, because we are not WhatsApp. The point is, we are not a one-to-one calling application. We are a
I
collaboration
I
platform.
I
Yeah. So,
understand that, but I'm saying
so,
that end-to-end encryption, why isn't it being offered to all users?
so
That's a baseline security now, pretty much.
again, Nikhil, I already answered that. If you
Hmm.
are on a Zoom client on your
Hmm.
laptop or on your mobile phone, and the opposite person is on a Zoom client on your mobile phone or a laptop using a Zoom client, your meetings are encrypted. It's an end-to-end encryption. It
So they
is.
are end-to-end encrypted and not just encrypted, right?
Yes. So client to client meetings are all entirely encrypted. So you can say it is end to end encrypted. When we say it is not end to end encrypted, it is when you bring in an additional format of communication into it. When you bring in a phone, when you bring in some other format. So as long as you're using a Zoom client, whether you are in a Zoom room or whether you're in a laptop or on a mobile device or iPad or whatever, you're joining a meeting through Zoom application, it is encrypted end to end. That's the clarity on it I can offer you.
Okay.
Okay, so the personal data protection bill is coming to India soon. The latest draft was it's under committee, and it has protections in place for minors, which include age verification, taking consent from guardians, no tracking or advertising tracking. So, do you think your product is ready to comply with the requirements set out in the latest draft?
So there are two things, Arun, on that one. One is the data protection, and second is the data localization, right? And there are a couple of aspects to this. We are compliant with that even today. As far as certain other new laws are coming in that are still at the drafting stage, so we are waiting for the policy to be put out in the open. And once that is put out in the open, we are sure that we will be able to comment what the facts are and whether we how far we comply. And even if we whatever the state might be, we are sure that we'll ensure that yeah, we comply with all the possible rules. We are compliant today, and we will remain compliant to tomorrow, even when some new laws come into picture.
Okay. So I would like to move on to some networking level questions. So has Zoom faced any unique networking issues in India in terms of connectivity with internet service providers?
Well, technically, I don't think so, because we also partner with a lot of telcos. We partner with Airtel for our selling of our services. We also partner with Tata Communications for hosting of our services. Our data centers in India are hosted within Tata Communication data centers. One is in Mumbai, one is in Hyderabad. So, if you ask me, network related challenges, no. But I mean, yes, there are certain other challenges, like in terms of, we definitely have a lot of bandwidth fluctuations and backnet trips and remote areas, connectivity issues, so on and so forth. But the plus point is, Zoom works. So our product, including voice and video, works fantastic at even low bandwidths, and that's one thing what the users really love about it.
Okay. How big has the growth in Zoom in India been? How many schools and so on are using the service?
That's a tough one. To be honest with you, Uh, well, we haven't done the fact finding. We haven't found the numbers as of now. To be honest with you, Arun and yeah, Nikhil, the point is, we've been working. I personally have been working 18, 20 hours a day, and it's really difficult for us to sit, pen down the numbers, etc. I don't have the numbers offhand. Our focus right now is to help the schools. Again, yesterday I received some 8-10 requests from some schools which were looking forward to move that, but we haven't got the exact numbers. We haven't sat down and done that bifurcation. Globally, we have got more than 100,000 schools. That was the last talk that we had done. But how many in India? How many in Singapore? I mean, that's a difficult one to answer at this stage. Once probably we've settled down a little bit after this, life normalizes a little bit, probably I'll have an answer for you at that time.
How about overall users and the increase in that? Is that something you have a rough idea on?
Again, for India, we have not done a bifurcation country wise for any country. Forget about India, but yeah, the global numbers are significant with terms of 100 million participants a day in our platform. End of Jan to 300 million participants a day. Now that was significantly fast growth. You can imagine the kind of pressures that we are in because of this growth, and I'm sure by now it must have crossed some significant other high milestone already. So we are just trying to survive at this stage.
Okay. So now, all free Zoom calls in India are routed through servers in the US. I mean, the call that we are on right now is being routed through Mumbai on the Tata servers that you mentioned earlier, I'm guessing. Uh, do you expect to increase the bandwidth and connectivity in India to route free calls through Indian servers as well? Or do you expect the status quo of routing free users through the US to continue? Because in the US, you have higher latency, right? By, I think, a factor of 10
Well,
in some
not
cases.
really. It's not. Uh, you can technically say that yes, the time for response or might be slightly higher when it comes to US, but the way our network is functioning, you won't realize that amount of lag because it's less than 5 seconds that we take a response from a particular data center and respond back. Uh, it's not based on the network requirements or increasing the bandwidth in India that the provisioning has been done. We have done predominantly again because of the provisioning based on the free users versus paid users. Free users typically have a lot of Gmail and Yahoo and so on and so forth kind of IDs. But yeah, who knows? We might route them to India as well in the near future.
Okay. Do you plan on doing rupees pricing in India? Euro pricing exists in the EU. I think some other currencies are
Yes,
supported.
so
And
that is coming up. That is definitely in the plans right now. Also, it is available via our partners. Our partners
hmm.
sell in INR. If anybody is looking to purchase in INR, our partners can help you with the INR
And
pricing.
do you expect a country-specific pricing strategy in India?
Yes, we do. We do. It's work in progress, and we should have it in a month's time or so. The COVID situation delayed it unnecessarily, but it would have been up and live probably a month or two back, but it got delayed.
So we can expect lower prices on some of these tiers.
That is speculative, I would say, but our pricing is global now. If you look at there's the base package which we have, it's
Hmm.
like $1,499. If you convert it into INR at 75 rupees, works out to around 1,100 rupees, which is like less than $40 a day. Probably cups of 2 cups of tea a
Hmm.
day cost. That's, I think, quite economical when you can do unlimited meetings for the month. So we feel that we are fairly placed and we are quite economical already. But we'll have to see what we do for India. We'll have to hold on to that.
Right. Okay. And on that pricing note, all digital products in India are subject to an 18% GST tax. Zoom has tax-related help documents for GST in Singapore, Australia, but we don't see such documentation for India, and the we don't have a GST line item on Indian invoices. So is this a tax that's
There is
being
a
paid
if you
in India?
if you if you select so first and foremost, if you buy through the partners, all taxes are paid by the partners, GST and everything relevant, all over taxes. So one of our largest partner, Airtel, right, they sell our services. They wouldn't sell anything without or not complying with the Indian rules and regulations.
Okay.
When you buy online, what happens is our invoices are net of taxes, and there is a WBS9 form which comes as a link to you in the invoice itself. It's a small blue link. You can click on it, and you can select that option.
Okay, so right now that burden is on the customer to pay that tax.
Yes.
Okay, um, just give me a moment.
But when it is through partner, our partners also provide the requisite details and all the requisite taxes are paid
Okay,
in India.
right. And I think just to round off, what do you see the way ahead for Zoom in India vis-a-vis other competitors? You have geo conferencing coming up. You have a host of other uh, conferencing apps that are aggressively competing right now. So how do you see your progress here uh, apropos
So
them?
again, I would like to draw your attention to the first answer which I did, which
Mhm.
is we are not a video conferencing or a video calling application. We are a collaboration application, and we got a host of services. We got services like Zoom rooms, huddle rooms, digital signage, API integrations, and so on and so forth. So what I mean by that is if you buy some large video conferencing devices and plonk them in your offices, you can straight away start using Zoom rooms. You can share your content from your laptop on the screen without even connecting any wires to your laptop. That isn't that amazing? You can schedule your Zoom room meetings from this common interface. You can actually find another Zoom room available on the same floor via a digital signage outside. You can have a lot of things. There are a lot of applications, a lot of stuff available. A lot of products are yet to come to India. We are working on that, and we should be launching some more products shortly. But to answer your question, no, we are not a video calling app. So we don't compete with those video calling apps. We have been an enterprise grade collaboration platform, and customers see value in getting end-to-end collaboration services from us. Whether it is an employee meeting from their desktops, laptops, to hosting their video conferences from a large VC room, to having an all hands call on a streaming device as you're streaming right now to YouTube, and to probably have a multi-screen stadium kind of a setup for their amphitheater or something like that. So we service the requirements in terms of all forms of communication and collaboration. And what you see on your mobile device or the video calling app, it's just one component of it, although it is a significantly large component.
Okay. Alex Chamos tweeted that making it possible for hosts to report disrupting their meetings even under end-to-end encryption is solvable. The likely solution will be a content ring buffer of the last X seconds on the host system that can be submitted to Zoom for triage and action for reporting to law enforcement. What does that mean? Does that mean Zoom will give data for that many seconds of the call on the host systems for enterprise or business customers as well?
Well, I'll have to go into the details of the statement. I don't exactly remember it word by word, but what I can tell you is he was mentioning about this statement would articulate about reporting of a user on the platform, Zoom platform, and I already spoke about it. When you are in a meeting and you find an offensive behavior by a particular user, you can click on report a user. It gets reported to us, and we then have the possibility of checking in terms of his credentials, come back to you if required, and if required we can block that person use to log into Zoom using the same credentials. Again, we can suspend the Zoom account as well.
Okay. Um, Nikhil, you had something to add? Just one second. Okay. So thank you. Thanks a lot, Samir, for joining us. This has been a pleasure. Thank you, Abhishek, as well. We'll be ending this now. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Nikhil and Arun. It was a pleasure talking to you. I really appreciate this.
Okay. I've ended.